All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding some seriously ancient symbols, epic tales, and deep philosophical secrets. We're unpacking a story that perfectly bridges the gap between our own individual human struggles and the totally unfathomable scale of the cosmos.
Now, I know that sounds literally like the plot of a modern fantasy novel, but it's actually the hook for one of the most profound philosophical journeys in all of ancient history. This is the story of sage Markandeya, and what he experiences goes way beyond just mere survival. It actually becomes the bedrock for understanding human society, ultimate reality, and the supreme power of the divine feminine.
We've got an incredible journey ahead of us today. We'll be looking at the boy who cheated death, surviving the cosmic deluge, decoding the divine metaphor, the Markandeya Purana itself, and finally, the glory of the goddess. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Boy Who Cheated Death, Defying Yama.
Our story starts with a really high-stakes dilemma. The sage Markandeya and his wife were desperately seeking an heir. So, after praying deeply, Lord Shiva appears to them, but he offers them this absolutely agonizing choice. They could have a brilliant, righteous son who would only live to be 16, or they could have a foolish child who would live a very, very long life. They ended up choosing the brilliant but short-lived son, Markandeya. So, his entire destiny was tied to this ticking clock. As Markandeya grew up, he was exemplary, super intelligent. But as that 16th year crept closer, the shadow of his impending death was just looming over his parents. But when Markandeya actually learned of his own fate, he didn't despair. Instead, he completely, 100% surrendered himself to his faith.
And that pure devotion, it literally turned his tragic fate into eternal life. On the exact day he was destined to die, Yama, the literal god of death, shows up. Yama throws his deadly noose, but it accidentally wraps around the Shivalinga. That's the sacred stone symbol Markandeya was fiercely hugging and worshipping. Lord Shiva, being fiercely protective, just bursts forth in sheer fury. He actually defeats Yama, conquering death itself, and grants Markandeya the ultimate boon of immortality. In the process, Shiva himself transforms into the ender of death.
Moving on to Section 2, Surviving the Cosmic Deluge, the End of the World.
But look, immortality comes with a pretty terrifying catch. It meant Markandeya was the only human left around to witness the end of everything. I'm talking about Pralaya, the great cosmic deluge. Imagine the oceans rising up, swallowing continents, every familiar structure just violently collapsing into a void. It's terrifying. He finds himself totally adrift. But just as all hope seems lost, he spots this incredibly bizarre sight, a radiant baby just resting on a delicate banyan leaf right in the middle of these violent waves. The baby takes a deep breath, and whoosh, Markandeya is magically sucked right up into its nostril. Once he's inside the baby's body, Markandeya is just completely stunned. Because instead of the chaotic destruction he was just running from, he finds an entire, perfectly intact universe in there. Forests, rivers, living creatures, they're all just going about their lives in perfect harmony, totally oblivious to the absolute apocalypse happening outside. Eventually, he gets exhaled back out into those terrifying waters, and he realizes this whole surreal contrast is actually a really powerful silent message. It tells us that pure faith acts as an indestructible raft when all of our external structures are breaking down.
Which brings us to Section 3, Decoding the Divine Metaphor, the Sociological Secret.
Okay, so you might be wondering, why exactly was this radiant baby just happily gurgling and sucking its right big toe while the literal universe drowns around it? Well, according to mythologist Devdutt Patanaik, this isn't just some random psychedelic imagery. It actually holds a really sharp, deeply sociological and spiritual lesson for all of us.
To really get this, we have to look at the Purusha Sukta hymn from the ancient Rig Veda. It basically envisioned human society as this giant living body. You've got the head representing the philosophers, the arms are the warriors, the trunk for the traders, and the feet representing the laborers. Now, human societies, right, we almost always create these toxic hierarchies. We celebrate the head and totally exploit the feet. But this divine baby, representing pure innocence, it is joyfully celebrating the neglected feet of society by sucking its toe. It's a massive, stark warning. When a culture exploits its foundational laborers, a societal pralaya, a total collapse, is absolutely inevitable.
And notice that the baby specifically sucks the right
toe. That's a huge detail. The right side is traditionally linked to spiritual reality, contrasting with the material left. It's a reminder that divinity actually exists in every single person, completely regardless of their social rank. The fool fixates on the flesh and temporary social status, and ultimately gets swept away in the deluge outside. But the wise focus on the soul that lives inside all that flesh, finding tranquility even in the middle of chaos.
Section 4. The Markandeya Purana, the Sage's Legacy.
Armed with all of this incredible cosmic wisdom, our immortal Markandeya becomes the narrator of an incredibly important text. 137. That is the total number of chapters in the Markandeya Purana. It's actually one of the oldest texts in this genre, dating all the way back to around 250 CE.
Now, it really stands out because of its broad, non-sectarian approach, meaning it isn't just pushing the worship of one single deity. And the narrative is playfully framed around this conversation with 4 wise birds in the Vindhya Mountains. It deeply explores the mechanics of karma, that endless cycle of rebirth we call samsara, and the discipline of yoga. But honestly, the most important thing it does is introduce the Sanskritic mainstream to the ultimate supreme power of the divine feminine.
And that leads us to Section 5, the glory of the goddess, the Devi Mahatmya.
Embedded right inside the Purana is this absolutely extraordinary 700-verse text. At its core is the concept of Mahamaya, the great illusion. Here, Devi, the goddess, is portrayed as way more than just a martial hero. She's the ultimate reality. She is the consciousness dwelling in literally all creatures. She weaves this grand, distracting illusion of the material universe, but, and here's the catch, she is also the exact key to liberating ourselves from it.
The text breaks down into 3 epic, action-packed episodes that show the goddess restoring cosmic order through these really fierce battles. In the first one, she actually awakens Vishnu to defeat the demons Madhu and Kaitaba. Then, in the middle and probably most famous episode, the male gods find themselves totally powerless against the shape-shifting buffalo demon Mahishasura. So out of sheer desperation, they combine all their energy into this blinding mass of light to forge goddess Durga. She rides in on a lion and just utterly destroys the beast. And later on, she manifests as the absolutely terrifying Kali, emerging alongside the 7 mothers to annihilate demons like Shumba, Mishumba, and Raktabija, who can literally multiply from a single drop of blood.
Now, you might be asking yourself, why do these violent, ancient myths actually matter to us today? Well, scholar Devadatta Kali hits the nail on the head here. These aren't just ancient historical battles, they are a psychological map. The evil adversaries, whether they represent deception, endlessly multiplying desires, or just sheer brute arrogance, they symbolize the human frailties and delusions inside our own minds. The demons the goddess fights, they're the exact same demons of ego we battle every single day.
So I want to leave you with this. Let it really sink in as you consider how these ancient symbols directly mirror your own modern life. When the supporting structures of your world collapse, what inner demons will you have to face? Whether it's a literal deluge around you or just a quiet battle with your own ego, remember that indestructible raft of faith, and remember the supreme, divine power within you that can always restore your cosmic order. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.